In 2024, a woman standing at a train station in Portland, Maine saw something that made her heart stop completely. A young woman with a 4-year-old boy. The boy tripped, started to cry, and the young woman knelt down and said something without thinking. A reflex, a phrase. Take a breath first. The woman waiting for the train felt her own mouth move, felt herself whisper the second half without meaning to, then cry, and the young woman with the boy said it too, completed the phrase. Then cry, then walked away, disappeared into the crowd, left the older woman standing, frozen on the platform. Because that phrase belonged to no one else. It was something she had said to her daughter 22 years ago. Her daughter, who had vanished from a playground in 2002, her daughter, who would be 25 years old now, and somehow impossibly a stranger, had just said it. This is the story of a child, taken in seconds, of a mother who recognized a phrase after 2 decades, and of how a ritual meant to comfort became the key to solving a crime that had been hidden for 22 years. September 2024, Portland train station, Maine. Julia Collins stood on platform 3, waiting for the 4:15 train to Boston. She made this trip once a month, visited her sister, stayed for the weekend, came back on Monday. It was a routine she had followed for years. Same platform, same time, same empty feeling that came with traveling alone. Julia was 51 years old and had been alone for most of her adult life. Her husband had left 3 years after their daughter disappeared. Could not handle the grief, could not handle the searching, could not handle living in a house that felt like a tomb. Julia had stayed, had kept searching, had kept hoping, even when hope became something more like habit than belief. And then one ordinary afternoon, everything changed. The platform was moderately crowded. Business travelers, college students, families. Julia stood near the edge, watched people move around her, noticed a young woman with a small boy about 10 feet away. The boy was 4 or 5 years old, excited, running in small circles. The young woman was watching him, smiling, relaxed. Then the boy tripped, fell forward, caught himself with his hands, but scraped his knee. Looked up at his mother with his face crumpling, about to cry. The young woman moved quickly, knelt down beside him, put her hand on his shoulder, and said without thinking, in a voice that was calm and automatic, "Take a breath first." Julia felt something cold move through her chest. That phrase, she knew that phrase, and before she could stop herself, before she could think about what she was doing, Julia whispered the second half so quietly, she barely heard herself, then cry. The young woman with the boy finished the phrase, said it to her son while looking at his knee, did not look up, did not notice Julia 10 feet away, then cry. The boy took a shaky breath, started crying. Not hysterical, just normal childhood tears. The young woman picked him up, held him, rocked him gently, whispered something Julia could not hear. Then the young woman stood, adjusted her bag, took the boy's hand, started walking toward the stairs. Julia stood completely still, staring. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it. That phrase, take a breath first, then cry. Julia had said that to her daughter, had said it dozens of times, hundreds of times. It was something Julia's own mother had said to her, a family phrase, a ritual. When Anna fell, when Anna got scared, when Anna was upset, Julia would kneel down, put her hand on Anna's shoulder, say those words. Take a breath first, then cry. And Anna would take a breath, would cry, would let the emotion out, would feel better. It was their phrase, their ritual, something private between mother and daughter. And Julia had just heard a stranger say it to her son on a train platform. This was not a coincidence. She felt it in her bones. Julia's legs moved before her brain caught up. She started walking toward the stairs, tried to follow the young woman, tried to see where she was going, but the platform was crowded. People were boarding trains, moving in different directions. By the time Julia reached the stairs, the young woman and her son were gone. Julia stood at the top of the stairs, looked around frantically, scanned the main terminal, checked every face. They were not there. Julia's train announcement came over the speakers, the 4:15 to Boston. Final boarding. Julia did not get on the train, just stood in the terminal, staring at nothing, trying to understand what had just happened. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe lots of people said that phrase. Maybe Julia had heard it somewhere else. Maybe it was not unique, but Julia had never heard anyone else say it, had never seen it in a book or on television, had never told anyone outside her family. It was her mother's phrase, then Julia's phrase, then Anna's phrase, and now A stranger's phrase. That thought would not leave her alone. Julia walked home in a daze, could not stop thinking about the young woman, about the boy, about the words. Sat in her kitchen, made tea, did not drink it, tried to convince herself it meant nothing. That she was seeing patterns where there were none. That 22 years of grief had finally made her imagine things. But she could not shake the feeling, the certainty, the cold knowledge settling in her chest. That young woman knew the phrase, had said it the exact same way Julia said it, with the same rhythm, the same feeling, which meant someone had taught it to her. Someone who knew Julia's family, someone who had known Anna. Julia went to her bedroom, pulled out a box from under the bed. The box she had not opened in 3 years. Inside were photos of Anna, missing person flyers, police reports, everything Julia had collected during the years of searching. Julia looked at the photos. Anna at 3 years old, blonde hair, blue eyes, laughing, playing, being a normal, happy child. Julia tried to imagine what Anna would look like now at 25, tried to imagine her face, her smile, her voice. Could not do it. Too many years, too many changes. The 3-year-old in the photos was not the same person who would exist now. Julia put the photos away, went to bed, could not sleep. The next morning, Julia went back to the train station, stood on the same platform at the same time, waited. The young woman did not come. Neither did the boy. Julia waited for an hour, watched every person who walked through, checked every face. They were not there. Julia went back the next day, and the day after that, spent a week going to the station at different times, morning, afternoon, evening. Never saw them again. If you have ever heard something impossible and spent days trying to find proof it was real, you know the particular madness of searching for ghosts in crowded places. Julia knew she was being irrational, knew the chances of seeing that woman again were nearly zero, knew she should let it go. But she could not, because somewhere in the back of her mind, a small voice kept whispering. That young woman was connected to Anna, had to be. There was no other explanation. September 2002, 22 years earlier, Portland, Maine. Anna Collins was 3 years old and loved going to the playground. Her favorite was Deering Oaks Park. It had swings and slides and a sandbox. Julia took her there every Saturday afternoon, weather permitting. Would push Anna on the swings, would watch her play in the sandbox, would sit on a bench and read while Anna played. On September 14, 2002, Julia and Anna arrived at the park at 2:00 p.m. The weather was perfect. Warm, but not hot, sunny. Anna ran straight to the sandbox, started playing with her plastic cups and shovels, building castles, making patterns in the sand. Julia sat on a bench 15 feet away, could see Anna clearly, could hear her talking to herself the way 3-year-olds do. Everything felt completely normal. That was the hardest part to live with later. The park was moderately busy. Other families, other children, everyone enjoying the late summer afternoon. At 2:47 p.m., Julia needed to use the restroom. The public restroom was 50 feet away. She could not see the sandbox from there. Julia looked at Anna. Anna was completely absorbed in her play, not moving, not wandering, totally focused. Julia made a decision. She would be gone for 2 minutes, maybe 3. Anna was safe, was in the sandbox, was not going anywhere. Julia walked to the restroom, used it, washed her hands, came back, was gone for exactly 2 minutes and 40 seconds, according to the police report filed later. When Julia returned to the bench, Anna was gone. The sandbox was empty. Anna's toys were still there, her cup, her shovel, her bucket. But Anna was not there. Julia's stomach dropped. She ran to the sandbox, called Anna's name, looked around frantically. No answer. Julia checked behind the trees, behind the restroom building, around the playground equipment. No Anna. Julia started running, screaming Anna's name, checking every corner of the park, asking other parents if they had seen a little girl, 3 years old, blonde hair, blue eyes, wearing a yellow dress. No one had seen anything. Julia called 911. Police arrived within 7 minutes, started searching immediately, brought dogs, checked the surrounding area, knocked on doors, asked neighbors if they had seen anything. Found nothing. Detective Michael Reeves took over the case. That evening, interviewed Julia, asked about the timeline, asked if anyone had reason to take Anna, asked if there were custody disputes, family problems, anything that might explain what happened. Julia said no, said Anna's father had left when Anna was a baby, had signed away parental rights, had no contact, no one else would take her. No reason for anyone to take her. Reeves checked surveillance cameras from nearby businesses, found nothing useful. The park had no cameras. The surrounding streets had limited coverage. Reeves interviewed everyone who had been at the park that afternoon, asked what they had seen. Most people said nothing, had been focused on their own children, had not noticed Anna or anyone approaching her. The case went cold within 6 months. No leads, no witnesses, no evidence. Anna had simply vanished in less than 3 minutes, Reeves told Julia the hard truth. That most children taken by strangers were found within 72 hours or not at all. That after 6 months, the chances of finding Anna alive were extremely low. Julia refused to accept it, printed flyers, posted them all over Portland, drove to surrounding towns, checked with hospitals, shelters, police departments, found nothing. Years passed. Julia kept searching, kept hoping, kept believing Anna was out there somewhere, but eventually hope became exhausting. Searching became a ritual with no purpose, and Julia had to accept that Anna might never be found. She never stopped thinking about her daughter, never stopped wondering what happened, but she stopped actively searching until September 2024, when a stranger said a phrase only Anna should have known. Now here is what no one knew at the time. September 2002, the moment Anna disappeared. Anna Collins was playing in the sandbox when a woman approached her. The woman was in her 30s, well-dressed, did not look threatening. The woman knelt down beside the sandbox, smiled at Anna, asked her name. Anna said, "Anna," the woman said. That was a pretty name. Asked if Anna was having fun, Anna said yes, showed the woman her sandcastle. The woman said it was beautiful, then said something that made Anna trust her completely. "Your mommy asked me to come get you," she said. "There is a surprise waiting. But first, we are going to go look at it together." Anna looked around for her mommy, did not see her. The woman said mommy was waiting, said they needed to go now before the surprise went away. Anna hesitated. Mommy had said, never go with strangers, but this woman seemed nice, and mommy had sent her, and there was a surprise. Anna stood up, took the woman's hand, let her lead her away from the sandbox. They walked across the park, away from the playground, toward the parking lot. A van was waiting, white, unmarked. The woman opened the door, told Anna to get in, said the surprise was inside. Anna climbed in, the woman closed the door, got in the driver's seat, drove away. The whole thing took less than 60 seconds. Anna sat in the back seat, asked where mommy was, asked about the surprise. The woman said mommy was meeting them, said the surprise would come later, said Anna should sit quietly and be a good girl. Anna started to feel scared. This did not feel right. Where was mommy? Why was the van moving? Where were they going? Anna asked to go back, said she wanted mommy. The woman said they could not go back yet, said Anna needed to be patient, said everything would be okay. They drove for 2 hours. Anna cried, asked for mommy over and over. The woman did not answer, just kept driving. Finally, they arrived at a house, suburban, normal looking, nothing threatening about it. The woman parked, opened the door, told Anna to come inside. Anna did not want to, started crying harder, said she wanted to go home. The woman's voice changed, became firmer, said Anna needed to come inside now, said there were people waiting to meet her. Anna had no choice, got out of the van, let the woman lead her inside. A couple was waiting, middle-aged, nervous, excited. The couple looked at Anna, started crying, said she was perfect, said she was exactly what they had been hoping for. Anna did not understand, asked where her mommy was, asked to go home. The woman who had taken her explained to the couple, said Anna would adjust, said all the children were confused at first, said it would take time. But Anna would forget, would accept her new life, would become their daughter. The couple looked uncertain, asked if this was legal, asked if everything was in order. The woman said yes, said the paperwork was handled, said Anna's birth mother had signed the necessary documents, said it was all legitimate. The couple wanted to believe her, had been trying to have children for 12 years, had gone through fertility treatments, adoption agencies, everything had failed. Then someone had told them about a private option, an agency that could arrange adoptions quickly for the right price. They had paid $45,000, had been told not to ask too many questions, had been given a 3-year-old girl who looked just like what they had always imagined their daughter would. Looked like they named her Nora. Nora Bennett, created a birth certificate, enrolled her in preschool, built a life around her, and tried not to think about why she cried for her real mommy. For the first 6 months, Nora cried every single night. Anyone who has watched a small child grieve something they cannot explain knows how quietly devastating it is. Nora did not have the words, did not understand what had happened, only knew that something was wrong, that someone was missing, that the world she remembered and the world she was living in did not match. The couple comforted her, loved her, told her she was home, told her she was safe. Slowly, the crying stopped. Slowly, the questions faded. Slowly, Anna became Nora, not by choice, but because she was 3 years old and did not have the power to resist, because the adults around her insisted, because eventually the memories faded and Nora was all that remained. But some things stayed. Fragments, habits, phrases that had been repeated so many times, they lived in muscle memory. Take a breath first, then cry. Nora did not remember where she had learned it, did not remember the woman who had said it to her hundreds of times, did not remember being Anna. But when her own son fell, when he got scared, when he needed comfort, Nora said it without thinking, without knowing why. Because some things survive even when memory does not. September 2024. 1 week after the train station encounter, Julia Collins sat in the Portland Public Library, staring at a computer screen. She had been coming here every day for a week, searching, looking for something she could not quite define. The young woman from the train station had disappeared. Julia had no way to find her. No name, no photo, no information except a phrase and a 4-year-old boy. But Julia could not let it go, could not accept that it had been coincidence, could not stop thinking about the way the woman had said those words. Take a breath first, then cry. The exact rhythm, the exact feeling, the exact way Julia had said it to Anna, which meant someone had taught it to her. Someone who knew that phrase, someone connected to Anna.Julia, started where she always started, when she did not know what else to do. She researched. She looked for patterns. She pulled up newspaper archives from 2002, the year Anna disappeared, started reading articles about missing children, found her own daughter's case mentioned in several stories, read the details she already knew by heart. Then she expanded the search, looked at the year after Anna disappeared, 2003, then 2004, then 2005. She was not looking for missing children anymore. She was looking for found children, for stories about children whose identities had been uncertain, whose backgrounds had been unclear. She found 3 articles, small, stories buried in the local news section. One from 2003, a child found wandering in South Portland, approximately 4 years old. No identification, eventually placed with foster care when no family came forward. One from 2004, a child left at a hospital around 3 years old. No medical records, no birth certificate, identity established through an adoption agency. One from 2005, a child enrolled in preschool with documentation that did not quite match. The discrepancy was noted but not investigated because the family seemed legitimate. Julia wrote down the details. Notice something. All 3 children had been around the same age as Anna when she disappeared. All 3 had appeared in the Portland area within 3 years of Anna's disappearance. All 3 had vague or incomplete background documentation. 1 child might be coincidence. 2 might be coincidence. 3 started to look like a pattern. Julia expanded her search, went back further, looked at 2000, 2001, found 2 more similar cases, went forward, looked at 2006, 2007, 2008, found 4 more. 9 children total, all appearing in Portland and surrounding areas between 2000 and 2008. All with unclear backgrounds, all placed with families through adoption agencies or foster care. Julia felt her pulse quicken. This was not coincidence. This was something organized, something intentional. She needed more information, needed to know if these children had been registered officially, needed to see birth records, adoption records, documentation, but she could not access that information. It was sealed, protected, required official credentials. Julia spent 2 more days trying to find public records, found nothing useful, Everything related to child placement was confidential. She was stuck, had found a pattern but could not prove it, could not connect it to Anna, could not do anything with the information. If you have ever found evidence of something wrong but had no authority to investigate it, you know the frustration of seeing the truth but being powerless to act. Julia sat in the library feeling defeated. She had spent 2 weeks searching, had found something real, but had no way to move forward. Then someone sat down at the computer next to her, an elderly man, 70s, wearing a cardigan and reading glasses. He glanced at Julia's screen, saw the newspaper articles about children with unclear identities. He did not say anything, just looked at the screen, then looked at Julia, then looked back at the screen. Finally, he spoke quietly. "You were looking at the wrong thing." Julia turned to him, asked what he meant. The man adjusted his glasses, said he used to work for the city in the Vital Records office, had retired 5 years ago, spent his time now in the library reading and doing research, said his name was Thomas Carter, said he had noticed Julia coming to the library every day, sitting at the same computer, searching through the same types of articles, said he recognized what she was doing because he had seen it before. People trying to find missing family members, trying to trace adoptions, trying to understand what happened to children who disappeared. This man had seen it all, and he was about to change everything. Julia asked if he could help, if he knew anything about the children she had found in the articles. Thomas said he could not give her names, could not access sealed records, could not violate privacy laws, but he could tell her where to look, what to look for, how to find patterns in public data. He explained that birth records were sealed, but birth statistics were not. The city published annual reports that showed how many children were born, how many were registered, how many registrations were delayed. Most children were registered within days of birth, but some were registered months or even years later, usually because of adoptions or because children had been born outside the system and were being integrated into it. Those delayed registrations were public information, not the names, but the numbers, the ages, the years. Thomas pulled up the city's vital statistics database, showed Julia how to navigate it, how to filter by year, by age group, by registration delay. Julia started searching, looked at the year. After Anna disappeared, 2003. Looked at children registered that year who had been born in 2002 or earlier. Found 7 delayed registrations. Children registered in 2003 but listed as being born between 1999 and 2002. Looked at 2004, found 6 more. Looked at 2005, found 8 over the next hour. Julia compiled a list. 43 children registered in Portland between 2003 and 2008 with delayed birth records. All registered at least 6 months after their supposed birth dates, many registered years later. Thomas explained that some of these were legitimate international adoptions, children born in rural areas without immediate access to registration, foster children being officially adopted, but 43 in 5 years was high, higher than average, statistically unusual for a city the size of Portland. Julia asked what it meant. Thomas said he could not say for certain, but in his experience, clusters of delayed registrations often indicated something irregular. Adoptions that were not quite legitimate, documentation that had been created after the fact. Julia felt cold, asked if he thought these children had been taken, if this was evidence of trafficking. Thomas said he did not know, said it was just numbers, just statistics, but said if Julia wanted to find out, she needed to take this to someone with authority, someone who could investigate properly. Julia thanked him, printed the statistical reports, compiled her notes, and that afternoon, she walked into the Portland Police Department for the first time in 20 years. But before we follow Julia through those doors, you need to understand what those 22 years had looked like for Anna. September 2002 to September 2024, Anna's 22 years as Nora Bennett. Nora Bennett grew up believing she had been born in Portland in 1999, that her parents were David and Rachel Bennett, that she had been adopted as a baby through a private agency. Her parents told her she was adopted when she was 7 years old, explained it gently, said her birth mother had loved her but could not take care of her, said David and Rachel had wanted a baby for so long, said Nora was their miracle. Nora accepted it, had no reason not to. Her parents loved her, gave her a good life, a nice house, good schools, everything she needed. But sometimes Nora had dreams, fragments of memories that did not quite fit. A woman with different hair, a different voice, a park with swings, a yellow dress. When she asked her parents about these memories, they said they were probably from before the adoption. Said Nora had been with a foster family briefly. Said it was normal to have vague memories from that time. Nora learned not to ask, learned to accept the life she had, learned to be Nora Bennett. She did well in school, made friends, went to college, studied early childhood education, wanted to work with children, met a man named Eric when she was 22, married him when she was 23, had a son when she was 24, named him James, loved him completely, devoted her life to being a good mother, and when James fell, when he got scared, when he needed comfort, Nora said something without thinking, a phrase that came from somewhere she could not remember. Take a breath first, then cry. She did not know where she had learned it, did not remember anyone saying it to her, but it felt right, felt natural, like something that had always been. Part of her Nora's life was normal, happy, unremarkable in all the ways that mattered. She had a husband who loved her, a son who brought her joy, parents who supported her, a job she found fulfilling. She had no reason to question any of it, no reason to wonder if the life she remembered was the life she had actually lived, because the mind protects itself, fills in gaps, creates stories that make sense. Especially when you are 3 years old and someone tells you your name is Nora, and this is your family and this is where you belong. The memories of being Anna faded, replaced by memories of being Nora, until there was nothing left of the 3-year-old who had played in a sandbox and waited for her mother to come back from the restroom, except for one thing. One phrase, one ritual that survived because it had been repeated so many times. It lived deeper than memory, in muscle, in instinct, in the part of the brain that does not forget, even when everything else does. Take a breath first, then cry. Nora did not know it was the key to everything, did not know it was the thread that would unravel 22 years of lies, did not know that saying it on a train platform would set in motion a chain of events that would change her life forever. She just knew it helped her son, made him feel better, made him feel safe, and that was all that mattered. Nora's parents, David and Rachel Bennett, had tried to be good parents, had tried to give Nora everything, had tried to make up for the lie they had been told when they adopted her, because they had not known, believed the adoption agency when they said everything was legal, when they said Nora's birth mother had signed the papers, when they said the delayed registration was just a bureaucratic issue. They had paid $45,000, had been desperate for a child, had been willing to overlook small inconsistencies, because they wanted so badly to believe it was real. And by the time they started to suspect something was wrong, it was already too late. Nora was 5 and still having nightmares about a woman she called Mommy when the adoption agency suddenly closed and could not be contacted. When they noticed discrepancies in the birth certificate they had been given, Nora was already there, daughter, already part of their family, already someone they could not imagine losing. So they stayed quiet, told themselves it did not matter, told themselves Nora was happy, told themselves they were her real parents now, regardless of how she had come to them. But the guilt never left. The knowledge that somewhere, a real mother might be looking for the child they called Nora. The fear that someday the truth would come out and they would lose everything. David and Rachel lived with that fear for 22 years, watched Nora grow up, watched her graduate, get married, have a child of her own, and prayed that the past would stay buried. It did not. September 2024, Portland Police Department Detective Michael Reeves was 63 years old and had been working in the missing persons unit for 37 years. He had worked hundreds of cases, had found some people, had lost most. The Anna Collins case was one he remembered, had worked it personally in 2002, had spent 6 months searching, had found nothing, had eventually moved on to other cases because there was nothing else he could do. When Julia Collins walked into his office on September 22, 2024, Reeves almost did not recognize her. 22 years had changed her, made her older, harder. But when she said her name, Reeves remembered immediately. Julia sat down across from his desk, said she had new information, said she needed him to reopen Anna's case. Reeves had heard this before. Parents of missing children often came back years later with new leads. Most of them were false, wishful thinking, coincidences that meant nothing. But he listened because that was his job. because Julia deserved that much. What she said next made him put down his pen. Julia told him about the train station, about the young woman, about the phrase. Reeves made notes, asked questions, but privately thought it sounded like coincidence, a common phrase that Julia was reading too much into. Then Julia pulled out the statistical reports, the data on delayed birth registrations, the cluster of 43 children registered between 2003 and 2008 with inconsistent documentation. Reeves stopped writing, looked at the numbers, felt something shift in his mind. This was not wishful thinking. This was data, evidence of a pattern. Julia explained how she had found it, how a retired city clerk had helped her understand what to look for, how the numbers suggested something organized, something systematic. Reeves asked if Julia had names, if she knew which specific children were involved. Julia said no, said the names were sealed, said she only had statistics, but said one of those 43 children might be Anna, and if they were investigating an organized adoption ring, they might be able to find her. Reeves sat back in his chair, thought about what this meant. If Julia was right, this was not just one missing child. This was trafficking. This was organized crime. This was something that required resources and authorization he did not currently have. He told Julia he would need to escalate this, would need to contact the FBI, would need to open a formal investigation into illegal adoption activities. Julia asked how long it would take. Reeves said he did not know. Weeks, maybe months. These investigations moved slowly. Julia said she had waited 22 years. She could wait a little longer. Reeves reopened the Anna Collins case that afternoon, flagged it not as a missing child case, but as a possible trafficking case. Contacted the FBI field office in Portland, requested assistance. The FBI sent an agent within 3 days, Special Agent Lisa Park. She reviewed Julia's data, reviewed the delayed registration statistics, agreed that it warranted investigation. Park explained the process to Julia and Reeves, said they would need to build a case, would need to identify which adoption agencies had been involved, would need to establish probable cause before they could request access to sealed records. The statistical anomaly was a strong indicator, but they needed more. Needed to connect specific agencies to the pattern, needed to show evidence of fraud or trafficking. Park started running background checks on adoption agencies that had been active in Portland between 2000 and 2008. Found 12 agencies. Most were legitimate. 3 had closed. 1 had been investigated for documentation problems in 2007, but never charged. She requested whatever public records existed for the closed agencies. Started building a timeline, started looking for connections. Reeves worked with her, pulled old missing children cases from the same time period, found 6 other children who had disappeared from Portland and surrounding areas between 2000 and 2008, all between ages 2 and 4, all taken from public places, all with no witnesses. The pattern was becoming clearer. This was not random. This was organized. This was a ring that had been operating for years. Right in plain sight, Park drafted a request for a federal warrant to access sealed adoption records for children placed through specific agencies between 2002 and 2008. Submitted it to a federal judge with all the evidence they had compiled. Then they waited. Julia went home, tried to go back to normal life, tried to work, tried to sleep. Could not do any of it well. She spent every day thinking about the young woman from the train station, about the phrase, about the possibility that after 22 years, Anna might finally come home. And somewhere across town, Nora Bennett went about her life, took care of her son, went to work, had dinner with her parents. Had no idea that everything she knew was about to change. October 2024, 3 weeks after the warrant request, Julia Collins sat in her kitchen drinking coffee she did not want. It was 6 a.m. She had not slept, had spent the night staring at the ceiling, thinking about the phone call that might come or might not come. 3 weeks since Detective Reeves had submitted the warrant request, 3 weeks of waiting, 3 weeks of trying to continue normal life while knowing everything could change at any moment. Julia's phone rang at 6:47 a.m. She answered before the second ring. Reeves said the warrant had been approved, said the FBI was accessing the sealed adoption records today, said they would know within 48 hours if any of the children matched Anna's profile. Julia asked if she should come to the station. Reeves said no, said they would call her as soon as they had information. Said to try to stay calm. Julia hung up, sat at her kitchen table, could not stay calm, could not do anything except wait at the FBI field office. Special Agent Lisa Park and Detective Michael Reeves sat in a conference room surrounded by files. 43 adoption records, 43 children registered in Portland between 2003 and 2008. With delayed documentation, Park had divided the files into 3 categories: legitimate adoptions with complete paperwork, questionable adoptions with minor inconsistencies, and suspicious adoptions with significant red flags. 31 fell into the legitimate category. 5 fell into the questionable category. 7 fell into the suspicious category. Every file in that last pile represented a child, a real child with a real story. Park pulled the 7 suspicious files, started going through them one by one. Were ruled out quickly, timelines that did not match, physical descriptions that did not line up. 3 files remained. All girls, all adopted between 2002 and 2004, all still living in the Portland area. Park cross-referenced the 3 files with missing children reports from the same time period, looked for matches in age, physical description, date of disappearance. File stood out immediately. Nora Bennett, registered October 8, 2002. Birth certificate listed March 12, 1999 as date of birth, making her 3 years old at time of adoption. Anna Collins had disappeared September 14, 2002. Born April 3, 1999, 3 years old at time of disappearance. Park pulled up Anna's missing person report, read the physical description. Blonde hair, blue eyes, small birthmark on left shoulder. Park looked at the timeline again. Anna disappeared September 14th. Nora was registered October 8th, less than 4 weeks later. The adoptive parents, David and Rachel Bennett, had paid $45,000 to an agency called New Beginnings Adoption Services. The agency had closed in 2006 after the owner died. Park showed the file to Reeves, pointed out the timeline, the suspicious documentation, the closed agency. Reeves compared it to Anna's file, saw the age match, the location match, the timing. Said they needed to verify, needed to be certain. Before they contacted anyone, Park agreed, said they should request a DNA comparison. Julia had already provided a sample years ago. They just needed a sample from Nora Bennett. But approaching Nora directly would be complicated. Could not just show up and ask for DNA without explanation. Park decided to approach the adoptive parents first, David and Rachel Bennett. Would explain the investigation, would request their cooperation. Park and Reeves drove to the Bennett home. In South Portland that afternoon, a modest house in a quiet neighborhood, well-maintained, normal. Rachel Bennett answered the door, looked surprised to see 2 federal agents standing on her porch. Park identified herself, asked if she and Mr. Bennett could spare a few minutes to discuss their daughter Nora's adoption. Rachel's face went pale. She called for David. He came to the door, asked what this was about. Park explained carefully. Said they were investigating an illegal adoption ring that had operated in Portland in the early 2000s. Said they had reason to believe some children placed through that ring had been taken rather than legally adopted, said Nora's adoption records. Had some irregularities. Said they needed to verify her identity. Said they needed DNA testing. David asked if they were saying Nora had been stolen. Park said they did not know yet. Said that was what the DNA test would determine. Rachel started, crying, said they had not known. Said the agency had told them everything was legal. Park said she understood. Said they were not being accused of wrongdoing. Said they appeared to be victims as well. Said she just needed their cooperation. David asked what would happen if the DNA matched, if Nora was actually someone else's child. Park said they would handle it carefully, would involve therapists, would do what was best for everyone. But said the truth needed to come out. Rachel asked who the child belonged to. Park said the name, Julia Collins. Said her daughter Anna had disappeared from a playground in 2002. Rachel covered her mouth, looked at David. They both knew, had suspected for years. Had been too afraid to admit it. David said they would cooperate. Said they wanted to know the truth. Said Nora deserved to know the truth. Park asked if Nora was home. David said she was at work, taught at a preschool downtown, would be home around 4 o'clock. Park said they would come back, would speak to Nora directly, then asked the Bennetts not to contact her before the agents arrived. David and Rachel agreed, sat in their living room after the agents left, held each other, and prepared for the moment they had feared for 22 years. At 4:30 p.m., Park and Reeves returned. Nora's car was in the driveway, a child's car seat visible in the back. Rachel answered the door again, said Nora was inside, said they had not told her anything. Nora came to the door, holding her 4-year-old son, James, looked confused, asked if everything was okay. Park asked if they could come inside, if they could talk privately. Nora put James in the playroom with Rachel, sat down in the living room with Park, Reeves, and David. Park explained gently. Said there was an investigation into illegal adoptions. Said Nora's adoption records had some inconsistencies, said they. Needed to ask some questions. Nora looked at David, asked what she was talking about. David took her hand, said to listen to what the agent had to say. Park asked Nora what she knew about her adoption. Nora said she had been adopted as a baby, said her parents had told her when she was 7. Park asked if Nora had ever questioned that story, if she had ever felt like something did not quite fit. Nora hesitated, said sometimes she had dreams, memories that did not match what her parents had told her, a park, a yellow dress, a woman's voice. Park asked if Nora remembered anything specific from before she came to live with the Bennetts. Nora said she did not think so, said she had asked her parents about the dreams when she was younger, said they told her the memories were probably from foster care. Park said the memories might be real, might be from before the adoption, might be from a different life. Nora looked confused, asked what she meant. Park explained that the agency that arranged Nora's adoption had been part of a trafficking ring, that children had been taken and sold to families who believed the adoptions were legal. Said there was a possibility Nora was one of those children. Said there was a mother who had been looking for her daughter for 22 years. Said that daughter's name was Anna Collins. Nora stood up, said that was impossible. Said she was Nora Bennett. Said her parents would never have been part of something like that. David said they did not know. Said they had been lied to. Said they had thought everything was legal. Nora looked at her father, asked if he was saying she was not his daughter. David started crying, said she would always be his daughter, but said they needed to know the truth. Park said they needed to do a DNA test, would compare Nora's DNA to Julia Collins, would know for certain who Nora really was. Nora asked what would happen if the test matched, if she was Anna. Park said they would handle it carefully, said Nora would have choices, but said Julia deserved to know what happened to her daughter. Nora asked about Julia. Park said she was a mother who had never stopped searching, who had recognized a phrase on a train platform that only her daughter should have known. Nora's head snapped up, asked what phrase. Park looked at her notes, read it back. Take a breath first, then cry. Nora went completely still, said she said that to her son, did not know where she had learned it, had just always known it. Park said that was Julia's phrase, said she used to say it to Anna, only they knew. Nora started crying, said she did not understand, said she did not know who she was anymore. Park let Nora cry, then asked if she would agree to the DNA test. Nora said yes, said she needed to know. Park swabbed Nora's cheek, sealed the sample, said results would take 3 to 5 days. 3 days later, the results came back. 99.9% match, Nora Bennett was Anna Collins. Park called Julia first, told her they had found Anna. Told her the DNA matched. Julia could not speak, just cried. 22 years of grief finally answered. Park called Nora next, told her the results. Told her Julia wanted to meet her, asked if she was ready. Nora said yes. Said she needed to see the woman who might be her mother. The meeting was arranged for 2 days later at a therapist's office, with professionals present. October 28, 2024, 22 years and 44 days after Anna disappeared. Julia arrived early, sat in the waiting room, could not stop her hands from shaking. Nora arrived 10 minutes later, walked in with her husband Eric, looked nervous, scared. Julia stood up when Nora entered, looked at her, saw the 3-year-old she remembered and the 25-year-old standing in front of her. Nora looked at Julia, saw the woman from her dreams. The therapist invited them into the office. Let them sit, let them take their time. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. The silence said everything. Julia spoke first, said she had been looking for Nora for 22 years, said she had never given up. Nora said she did not remember, said she was sorry, but she did not remember being Anna, did not remember Julia, said that was okay, said Nora did not have to remember, did not have to be Anna if she did not want to be, but said there was something she needed to know, something that proved they were connected. Julia said when Nora was little, when she got scared or hurt, Julia would say something to her, a phrase to help her calm down. Nora looked up, already. Knowing what Julia was going to say, Julia's voice was gentle. Take a breath first. Nora's eyes filled with tears. Finished the phrase without thinking, then cry. Julia nodded, said that was theirs, said she had said it to Nora hundreds of times, said it was something passed down, something that belonged to their family. Nora started crying, said she had always said it to her son, had never known why. Julia said it was because somewhere deep inside, Nora still remembered being loved, remembered being safe. Nora and Julia talked for 2 hours, about the past, about the present, about what came next. Nora said she needed time, needed to figure out who she was. Julia said she understood, said she had waited 22 years, could wait as long as Nora needed. Some things are worth waiting for. Anna was one of them. 6 months later, Nora legally changed her name to Anna Nora Bennett Collins, a name that honored both identities. She introduced Julia to James, let him call her Grandma. She visited Julia regularly, learned about her childhood, looked at photos, heard stories, and one day, when James fell and started to cry, Nora knelt down beside him, put her hand on his shoulder, and said the phrase that had survived 22 years. Take a breath first, then cry. And this time she knew exactly where it came from. If this story reminds you that some missing children do come home, that phrases can carry truth across decades, that mothers who never give up sometimes get their daughters back. Remember this: Anna Collins was taken at age 3, was given a new name, a new family, a new life, but a phrase survived, and a mother recognized it. And after 22 years, the truth finally came out. Someone is still missing. Someone is still searching. Do not give up. Do not stop looking. Because Anna came home after 22 years, and her story belongs to every mother who refuses to stop believing.